Princess Hayrin stood in the center of the diplomatic chamber, her hands shaking despite her best efforts to stay calm. The room was perfect, like everything else in her life. Clean white walls curved smoothly into a crystal dome ceiling that showed the stars outside. Soft blue light came from panels in the floor, making everything look peaceful and safe. This was how the Villani Empire built everything beautiful, controlled, and predictable. But today, nothing felt safe. She touched the communication device on her wrist, checking the time again. The human delegation would arrive in less than 10 minutes. Her crystalline skin, normally a soft pink color, kept flickering with nervous purple lights. She tried to breathe slowly, the way her tutors had taught her, but it did not help much. "Your Highness, please remember the breathing exercises," said Elder Tehi, her diplomatic advisor. The old Villani woman stood near a wall, her own skin glowing with steady gold patterns that showed her many years of experience. "You must not let them see your fear." "I am not afraid," Hayrin lied, but her skin betrayed her with another flash of purple light. Tehi moved closer, her long white robes making soft sounds on the smooth floor. "Child, every species in the galaxy fears the humans. There is no shame in this fear. They come from a death world. Their planet should have killed them long ago, but instead it made them into something we do not understand." Hayrin had read the reports. Earth was a nightmare planet where everything tried to kill everything else. The weather changed without warning. Poison fell from the sky as rain. The ground shook and split open. Mountains exploded with fire. The oceans were full of creatures with too many teeth. Most of the planet was either too hot or too cold for normal life, and yet humans lived there. They built cities there. They called it home. "Why did Father choose me for this?" Hayrin asked, not for the first time. "My sisters have more experience. They understand military matters and trade agreements." "Because you have something they do not," Tehi said softly. "You see beauty in different things. You ask questions that others would never think to ask. The Emperor believes this will help us understand the humans." The communication system made a soft chime. A voice spoke in the common galactic language. "Human delegation approaching. Arrival in 5 minutes." Hayrin felt her heart beating faster. She had never met a human before. None of her people had, except for the first contact team 6 months ago. They had come back changed, speaking in whispers about human soldiers who moved like shadows and human ships that looked like they were built for war instead of beauty. The humans had asked for this meeting. They wanted to discuss mutual cooperation and understanding the Villani Empire could not refuse. Humans were new to the galaxy, but they were already making other species nervous. Better to meet with them now and learn what they wanted. "Remember," Tehi said, "they are smaller than us, but do not let that fool you. Their bones are denser. Their muscles are stronger. They heal faster from injuries that would kill most of us. And their eyes ... She shuddered. "They have eyes." "Like predators." Hayrin nodded, trying to look confident. She wore her finest ceremonial dress, made from living crystal that responded to her emotions with gentle light. Golden threads were woven through her long black hair. Precious stones from her homeworld decorated her arms and neck. She looked like what she was, a princess of the most powerful empire in this part of the galaxy, but she felt like a scared child. The chamber doors were thick and strong, made from metal that could stop weapons fire. They began to slide open with a deep humming sound. Hayrin straightened her back and lifted her chin. Whatever happened, she would not embarrass her family or her people. A figure appeared in the doorway. Hayrin had expected a monster. The reports talked about humans like they were demons from the old stories. But the human who walked into her chamber looked almost normal. He was shorter than she was, maybe coming up to her shoulder. His skin was darker than hers, a warm brown color that reminded her of the wooden furniture in her father's study. His hair was black and cut very short. He wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations except for some kind of rank marking on his collar. His boots made quiet sounds on the floor as he walked toward her. Everything about him seemed calm and controlled, but his eyes ... Tehi had been right about the eyes. They were dark brown, almost black, and they moved constantly. He looked at everything in the room, the walls, the ceiling, the exits, her advisor, her guards. He was not rude about it, but Hayrin could see him noting every detail, as if he was making a map in his mind. When his eyes finally met hers, she felt something cold run down her spine. There was intelligence there and curiosity, but also something else, something that reminded her of the hunting cats from her homeworld, calm on the surface, but ready to move fast if needed. He stopped 3 steps away from her and made a small bow. Not too deep, which would have been insulting, but not too shallow, which would have been disrespectful. Someone had taught him their customs. "Your Highness," he said in perfect galactic standard. His voice was deeper than she had expected and rougher. "I am Sergeant Dong-Soo Kim of the United Earth Defense Force. I am honored to meet you." Rin tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. Her skin flickered with nervous light again. She saw him notice it, saw his eyes track the patterns of color across her face and arms. Most aliens found Vellani's skin light beautiful. This human just watched it like he was learning a new language. I welcome you to our station," she finally managed to say. Her voice sounded higher than normal. "I am Princess Hayrin of the Vellani Empire. We are pleased to begin discussions with your people." Dong-Soo nodded once. "Thank you, Your Highness. My government hopes these talks will lead to friendship between our species." He spoke the formal words correctly, but Hayrin could hear something else underneath. He was being polite because the situation required it, not because he was naturally formal. She wondered what he was really thinking. "Please," she said, gesturing toward a curved bench near the center of the room. "Let us sit and talk." As they moved toward the seating area, Hayrin noticed how Dong-Soo walked. He did not make much noise, and he seemed to know exactly where everything was without looking directly at it. Her own guards, tall Vellani warriors, in ceremonial armor, looked clumsy next to him. They sat down across from each other. The bench was designed for Vellani, so it was probably too big for him, but he did not seem uncomfortable. He sat straight but relaxed, his hands resting calmly on his knees. "Your journey here was safe, I hope?" Hayrin asked. "Yes, thank you. Your people build impressive stations. The engineering is very advanced." It was a polite answer, but again, she heard something underneath. He was impressed by their technology, but not surprised by it, as if he expected all advanced species to build things like this. "We have built many such stations over the centuries," she said, trying to sound proud, instead of nervous. "The Vellani Empire values beauty and function working together." "That shows in everything we have seen so far," Dong-Soo replied. "My people appreciate good craftsmanship." Hayrin felt herself relaxing slightly. He seemed normal, polite, respectful, even friendly. Maybe the reports had been wrong? Maybe humans were not as dangerous as everyone said? Then Dong-Soo smiled, and she saw his teeth. They were white and straight, but she could see the sharp points of his canine teeth. Predator teeth, teeth made for tearing meat. Her skin blazed with purple light before she could stop it. Dong-Soo's smile faded immediately. "I apologize, Your Highness. I did not mean to make you uncomfortable." The fact that he had noticed her reaction so quickly, and that he understood what it meant, somehow made it worse. How much did humans know about her people? How much had they studied Vellani biology and behavior? "No apology needed," she said quickly, but her voice was shaking again. "I am simply adjusting to meeting a new species." "Of course," he said gently. "This is strange for both of us. I have never met anyone like your people either." But he did not look nervous. He did not look scared at all. He looked interested, alert, ready for anything. Like he was exactly where he wanted to be. Hayrin realized with growing terror that she was sitting 3 feet away from one of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, and he was being nice to her. The formal dining hall was one of the most beautiful rooms on the station. Crystal walls let in starlight from outside, while soft music played from hidden speakers. The table was made from a single piece of white stone that had been polished until it looked like frozen water. Everything was perfect. Just like Hayrin had been taught to expect from proper Villani hospitality, she sat at one end of the long table, wearing a different ceremonial dress for the evening meal. This one was deep blue with silver patterns that matched the lights in her skin. Across from her, Sergeant Dongsu looked small in the large chair designed for Villani bodies. He had changed from his military uniform into what humans probably considered formal clothing, a dark jacket, and pants that were clean but simple. Elder Tehi sat nearby with two other Villani diplomats. At the far end of the table, three more humans from Dongsu's delegation spoke quietly among themselves. The room should have felt full of important people having important conversations. Instead, it felt tense and strange. The meal began with traditional Villani foods. Servers brought small crystal bowls filled with concentrated energy that glowed with soft light. The energy tasted like sunshine and made Hayrin feel warm inside. It was what her people had eaten for thousands of years, perfect nutrition in a beautiful form. The humans politely tasted the energy food, but Hayrin could see they did not really eat it. Their bodies probably could not process pure energy the way Villani could. She wondered what they ate on their terrible home planet. "Your Highness," Dongsu said, "would it be acceptable if we shared some of our own food? We brought emergency rations in case your food did not agree with our biology." "Of course," Hayrin replied, curious despite her nervousness. "We would be honored to learn about human cuisine." One of the other humans opened a small bag and pulled out several packages. They looked military, plain brown containers with writing that Hayrin could not read. Dongsu opened one package and the smell hit her immediately. It was awful. The smell was strong and sharp and made her stomach turn. Whatever was in that package had been dead for a long time. She saw Elder Tehi's skin flash with green disgust. Patterns. And the other Villani diplomats leaned back in their chairs, but Dongsu just smiled and started eating. Hayrin watched in horror as he chewed the dead-smelling food like it was perfectly normal. Her skin began flickering with purple warning lights again. She tried to control it, but the sight of him eating something that smelled like death was too much. "What ... she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Beef stew," Dongsu replied after swallowing. "It is meat from an animal called a cow, mixed with vegetables and preserved for long storage. This package is probably 6 months old, but it is still good to eat. 6 months old. Dead animal meat that had been sitting in a package for 6 months. And he was eating it like it was a treat." Hayrin felt sick. "Your people eat ... animals?" Elder Tehi asked, clearly trying to sound diplomatic instead of disgusted. "Most human food comes from things that were once alive," Dongsu explained patiently. "Plants, animals, fungi. We cook them or preserve them in different ways. This meal also has potatoes, which grow underground, and carrots, which are orange. Roots." He continued eating while he talked, completely comfortable with consuming death. The other humans did the same, chatting casually while they chewed on things that had been killed and processed and stored for months. "How do you not get sick?" Hayrin asked. She was fascinated and horrified at the same time. "Our bodies are used to it," Dongsu said. "Humans have been eating like this for hundreds of thousands of years. Our digestive systems can handle foods that would poison most other species." As if to prove his point, he opened another package. This one smelled even worse, like chemicals, and salt and something rotten. But he ate it anyway, mixing it with water to make a thick drink. "Coffee," he explained, seeing her expression. "A stimulant made from ground beans. This is instant coffee, so it does not taste very good, but it helps keep us alert." Alert. He was eating poison to stay alert. Hayrin's skin was now blazing with nervous light patterns. She could not stop the colors from dancing across her face. "And arms, Sergeant," she said carefully. "You mentioned that you served on other worlds. What were the conditions like?" Dongsu paused with his spoon halfway to his mouth. "Which deployment, Your Highness?" "Any of them," he thought for a moment. "Last year I spent 4 months on Kepler 438b. It is a mining world with surface temperatures around 800 degrees Celsius. The atmosphere is mostly sulfur compounds that would dissolve your lungs if you breathed them. We lived in underground bunkers and worked 12-hour shifts in environmental suits. 800 degrees. Heiren's homeworld never got above 30 degrees, and that was considered dangerously hot. Before that, Dongsu continued, I was stationed on an ice moon orbiting a gas giant. Temperatures dropped to minus 200 degrees at night. The atmosphere was so thin you could not breathe, and radiation from the gas giant would kill most species in a few hours without shielding. He said all of this while eating his horrible preserved food like he was talking about a vacation. How did you survive? She whispered. Standard human environmental gear, he replied with a shrug. Our technology is not as advanced as yours, but it is very reliable. And humans adapt quickly to new conditions. Adapt, that word again. Elder Taehi had used it during their briefings, always with a worried tone. Humans adapted to things that should kill them. Heirin reached for her ceremonial chalice, needing something familiar to steady her nerves. The chalice was made from crystal grown on her homeworld, delicate and beautiful. It held pure water infused, with minerals that helped Villani stay calm, but her hands were shaking so badly that she knocked the chalice over. It fell to the stone floor and shattered into 1,000 pieces. The sound was sharp and sudden in the quiet dining hall. Rin stared at the broken crystal, feeling like she had just destroyed something sacred. The chalice had been in her family for generations. Before she could even react, Dongsu was moving. He slid out of his chair and dropped to the floor next to the broken crystal. His movements were fast but controlled, like he had done this many times before. He began carefully picking up the larger pieces, making sure not to cut himself on the sharp edges. Please, Sergeant, you do not need to, Heirin started to say. It is no trouble, Your Highness, he replied, still gathering pieces. Accidents happen, she watched him work. His hands moved quickly and efficiently, sorting the crystal shards by size. He was being careful not to damage the pieces further, as if he understood that the broken chalice might be important to her. This crystal is beautiful, he said, holding up a larger fragment. It looks like it came from a living organism rather than a geological formation. He was right. Crystal-singing trees on her homeworld grew these formations over decades, and each one was unique. How did he know that just from looking at broken pieces? It was grown on Villani Prime, she said softly. It belonged to my grandmother. Dongsu paused in his cleaning. I am very sorry for your loss, Your Highness. Both the chalice and your grandmother. The simple kindness in his voice surprised her. She had expected him to not understand or to say something about how easily it could be replaced. Instead, he seemed to really understand that she had lost something precious. Thank you, she said. Grandmother would have liked that you helped clean it up? She always said that kindness shown to broken things was the truest kindness of all. Dongsu smiled, and this time Heirin did not flinch at the sight of his predator teeth. Your grandmother sounds like she was a wise woman. He finished gathering the crystal pieces and stood up, holding them carefully in his cupped hands. Would you like me to put these somewhere safe? Sometimes broken things can be repaired or at least kept as memories. Heirin looked at this human soldier, this creature from a deathworld, holding the remains of her family treasure with gentle hands. He had moved to help her without thinking about diplomatic protocol or what he might gain from the gesture. He had just seen something broken and tried to fix it. Maybe the reports about humans were wrong. Or maybe they were right, but being dangerous did not mean being cruel. Your world, she said quietly. Earth, how do your people survive such terrible conditions? Dongsu looked thoughtful. We do not think of them as terrible, Your Highness. Earth is our home. It taught us to be strong, to help each other, to fix things when they break. Every challenge made us better at surviving the next challenge. He paused, still holding the crystal fragments. We adapt, Your Highness. That is what humans do best. We adapt. Heirin felt something shift inside her chest. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Curiosity, maybe, or respect? We should continue the meal, she said finally. Dong-su nodded and carefully placed the crystal pieces on a side table before returning to his chair. He went back to eating his horrible preserved food like nothing had happened, but everything had changed. Heirin found herself watching him with new eyes, wondering what other surprises this quiet human might have. The observation deck looked down into the largest chamber on the station. Rin stood behind thick, transparent walls, watching technicians prepare the combat simulation room below. The chamber was huge, big enough to hold a small city, with walls that could change shape and create any environment that computers could imagine. "This is really necessary?" she asked Elder Tae-hee, who stood beside her reviewing data on a tablet. "The diplomatic protocols require it," Tae-hee replied without looking up. "All new species must demonstrate their military capabilities before formal relations can begin. It helps prevent misunderstandings later." Heirin had seen these demonstrations before. Usually they were boring affairs where alien delegations showed off their best weapons and most advanced armor. The Korth brought their plasma cannons. The Zephyrians displayed their energy shields. Everyone followed careful scripts and tried to look impressive without actually doing anything dangerous. She had expected the humans to bring similar equipment. Maybe some kind of advanced technology that would explain how they survived on their terrible homeworld. Instead, Sergeant Dong-su had arrived at the simulation chamber wearing the same simple uniform he had worn to dinner, carrying only basic equipment that looked almost primitive. "Are you sure this is all you need?" the chief technician had asked, looking confused at Dong-su's small pile of gear. "This is fine," Dong-su had replied calmly. "What kind of scenarios do you have available?" Now Heirin watched through the observation window as Dong-su stood alone in the center of the massive chamber. He looked very small down there, like a single tree in an empty field. The simulation had not started yet, but he was already moving around the space, looking at the walls and ceiling, testing the floor with his feet. "What is he doing?" she asked. "Learning the environment," said Commander Park, the senior human officer who had come to observe. "Dong-su always does this. He needs to understand the space before anything happens." The chief technician spoke over the communication system. "Sergeant Kim, we are ready to begin. The first scenario is a hostile environment challenge. You will face extreme weather, dangerous terrain, and predatory creatures. Most species use environmental suits and support teams for this test." "Understood," Dong-su replied. "Begin when ready." The chamber began to change. The walls shifted and grew, creating rocky cliffs and deep valleys. The ceiling darkened and began producing rain, not regular water, but something that steamed and hissed when it hit the ground, acid rain. The temperature readings on Heirin's display screen jumped up and down wildly as the simulation created pockets of extreme heat and cold. Then the creatures appeared. They were not real, just hard light projections created by the simulation computers. But they looked terrifying. Six-legged things with too many teeth and claws that could cut through metal. They moved fast and worked together, surrounding their prey before attacking. Heirin had seen Korth warriors fight these same creatures. They had used heavy armor and energy weapons, working in teams of 5 or 6 soldiers. Even then, it had been difficult and dangerous. Dong-su faced them alone. With no armor and only basic equipment, the first creature came at him from the left, jumping down from a rocky ledge. Dong-su did not try to fight it directly. Instead, he rolled to one side and grabbed a piece of loose rock. As the creature landed where he had been standing, he threw the rock not at the creature, but at a weak point in the cliff wall above it. The rock hit exactly where he had aimed. A section of the cliff broke loose and crashed down on the creature, crushing it instantly. "Clever," Commander Park said with approval. "He is using the environment as a weapon." More creatures appeared, but Dong-su was already moving. He ran toward a pool of the acid rain that had collected in a low spot. When the creatures followed him, he jumped across the pool at the last second. The creatures tried to follow but fell into the acid, which dissolved them in seconds. Heirin stared in amazement. How did he know the acid would hurt them? "He tested it," Commander Park explained. "Did you see him drop a small stone in the pool as he ran past?" "He was checking to see what the acid would do," The simulation continued. More dangers appeared. Rock slides, extreme temperatures, poisonous gas, electrical storms. Each time, Dong-su found a way to turn the danger into an advantage. When lightning struck near him, he used a metal rod to direct the electricity into attacking creatures. When toxic gas filled a valley, he climbed above it and used the gas to create a barrier between himself and his enemies. "This is impossible," Elder Taehi whispered. "No single warrior should be able to handle all of this." But Dong-su was not just handling it. He was succeeding. More than that, he seemed to be enjoying himself. Even through the observation window, Heirin could see that he was completely focused but not panicked. He moved with confidence, like he had trained for exactly this kind of chaos. "Has he done this before?" she asked Commander Park. "Similar things," Park replied, "but every environment is different. He adapts to whatever he finds." There was that word again. Adapt. Heirin was beginning to understand what it really meant when humans used it. The simulation should have ended after 30 minutes. That was how long most species could survive in the hostile environment, even with their best equipment. But Dong-su kept going. After an hour, the technicians started looking worried. After 2 hours, they began checking their equipment to make sure everything was working properly. "Should we stop the test?" The chief technician asked over the communication system. "Not unless the sergeant requests it," Commander Park replied, down in the chamber. Dong-su had found a relatively safe spot on a high ledge and was examining the equipment he had started with. Rin could see him taking apart some kind of device and rebuilding it into something new. "What is he making?" she asked. "I am not sure," Park admitted. "But knowing Dong-su, it will be something useful." 10 minutes later, they found out. Dong-su had built some kind of trap using parts from his equipment and materials he had found in the simulation. When the next wave of creatures attacked, they ran straight into it. The trap did not just kill them, it used the creature's own momentum to trigger a chain reaction that brought down half a mountain. Heirin felt her skin blazing with nervous light. This was not normal. This was not how other species fought. Other species used superior technology and careful planning and overwhelming force. Dong-su was using the chaos itself as his ally. Then something went wrong. Warning lights began flashing on the control panels around the observation deck. The chief technician started pressing buttons frantically while other workers ran back and forth checking systems. "What is happening?" Heirin demanded. "System malfunction," the technician replied, sweat beading on his forehead. "The simulation is not responding to shutdown commands. The environmental hazards are increasing beyond safe parameters." Down in the chamber, the acid rain became heavier. The temperature swings became more extreme. Lightning strikes came faster and closer together. The predatory creatures multiplied, becoming a swarm instead of individual threats. "Get him out of there!" Heirin shouted. "We are trying!" The technician replied. "But the emergency systems are not working. Something is wrong with the main computer." Heirin pressed against the observation window, watching in horror as the simulation turned deadly. The environment that had been challenging but manageable was now genuinely trying to kill everything inside it. She could see Dong-su down there, still moving, still adapting, but there were limits to what even a human could survive. Her skin was now blazing with purple panic patterns. Her breath came in short gasps. This was her fault. She had allowed this demonstration to happen. If Dong-su died in that chamber, it would destroy any chance of peace between their peoples. "There!" Commander Park pointed at one of the displays. He found the maintenance access panel. On the screen, they could see Dong-su climbing up the chamber wall toward a small panel that was almost invisible against the rock surface. While lightning crashed around him and acid rain burned through his clothes, he was trying to reach the manual controls for the simulation system. How does he know where that panel is? Elder Taehi asked. He probably spotted it during his initial survey of the chamber, Park replied. Dong-su notices things like that, but reaching the panel was only half the problem. The maintenance system was designed for station technicians, not combat soldiers. It required specific knowledge of the computer systems and careful programming to shut down safely. Dong-su reached the panel and tore off the cover. Inside was a complex array of circuit boards and control chips that would have confused most people, but somehow, impossibly, he began making changes to the system. "What is he doing?" the chief technician asked. "He cannot possibly understand our computer architecture." On the display screens, they could see the simulation environment beginning to stabilize. The acid rain slowed down. The lightning strikes became less frequent. The swarm of creatures stopped multiplying and began to disappear. "He is not just shutting it down," one of the junior technicians said in amazement. "He is debugging the system and fixing the malfunction from inside the simulation." Heirin stared at the screens, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. Dong-su was hanging from a cliff face in the middle of a deadly simulation. Rin sat alone in the station's meditation gardens, her royal composure completely shattered. The gardens were her favorite place on the station, a quiet space, filled with crystal formations that sang softly when touched by the artificial breeze. Pools of clear water reflected colored lights from the ceiling, and the air smelled like the flower gardens of her homeworld. But tonight, none of it brought her peace. She had dismissed her guards and advisors hours ago, claiming she needed time to prepare her report for the Emperor. The truth was that she could not bear to have anyone see her like this. Her skin flickered with chaotic patterns of light, purple fear mixed with blue confusion and flashes of red anger. She looked like a broken lamp, pulsing with colors that made no sense together. The meeting with the human delegation was supposed to continue tomorrow, but Heirin did not know how she could face Sergeant Dong-su again. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him hanging from that cliff inside the malfunctioning simulation, calmly fixing problems that should have killed him while lightning crashed around his head. It was impossible. Everything about humans was impossible. She touched one of the singing crystals, letting its gentle music wash over her. The sound reminded her of home, of safety, of a universe that made sense. The Villani Empire had been built on order and control. They studied problems carefully, made detailed plans, used superior technology to overcome challenges. It had worked for thousands of years, but humans did not follow those rules. They jumped into chaos and made friends with it. They turned disasters into opportunities. They fixed things while they were breaking and somehow came out stronger. "Your Highness?" Heirin spun around, her skin blazing with startled yellow light. Sergeant Dong-su stood at the entrance to the gardens, no longer wearing his military uniform. Instead, he had on simple civilian clothes, a dark shirt and pants that looked comfortable and worn. Without the formal uniform, he looked younger, more tired. "I apologize for disturbing you," he said quietly. "I was told you might be here. I wanted to make sure you were all right after what happened in the simulation chamber." Heirin tried to compose herself, to put on the mask of royal dignity that had been trained into her since childhood. But she was too exhausted, too shaken. The lights in her skin continued to flicker with uncontrolled patterns. "I am fine," she lied. Dong-su looked at her for a moment, then walked slowly to a bench on the other side of the small garden. He sat down, giving her plenty of space, but close enough that they could talk without raising their voices. "May I stay for a few minutes?" he asked. "The gardens are beautiful. We do not have anything like this on Earth." Heirin nodded, not trusting her voice. She watched him look around at the crystal formations and reflecting pools, seeing genuine appreciation in his expression. He reached out to touch one of the singing crystals, then pulled his hand back when it made a soft musical note. "It is all right," she said softly. "They like to be touched. That is how they sing." Dong-su smiled and touched the crystal again, listening to the gentle sound it made. "Incredible." "Are they alive?" "Not exactly," Heirin replied. "They are grown." "Not built?" "My people learned to shape them over many centuries. They respond to touch, to emotion, to the presence of living beings." "Like your skin," Dong-su observed. Heirin felt her colors flicker again. "Yes, we cannot hide what we feel the way other species can. Our emotions show on our bodies whether we want them to or not. That must be difficult sometimes." The simple understanding in his voice caught her off guard. She had expected him to say something about how useful it must be for diplomacy or how beautiful the light patterns were. Instead, he understood that being unable to hide your feelings could be a burden. Yes, she whispered. Especially now. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, listening to the crystal music and the gentle sound of water in the pools. Hei-Rin found herself relaxing slightly. There was something peaceful about Dong-Su's presence that she had not expected. He did not feel dangerous right now, despite what she had seen him do in the simulation. "You are afraid of us," he said finally, not making it a question. Hei-Rin's skin pulsed with purple light before she could stop it. She stopped, then decided to be honest. "Yes, your people terrify me, I know," Dong-Su said gently. "Your people see us as monsters. Most species in the galaxy do." "Are you?" she asked, then felt embarrassed for asking such a direct question. Dong-Su was quiet for a long time, thinking. "I suppose that depends on how you define monster," he said finally. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. That changed us, made us harder than most species, more willing to fight, better at surviving things that should not be survived." He touched another crystal, listening to its song. "But we are not evil, Your Highness. We do not enjoy causing pain or destroying things. We do not give up, ever, when everything goes wrong, when the situation seems hopeless. When any reasonable person would surrender, that is when humans dig in and start fighting harder." "Like in the simulation," Hei-Rin said. "Yes, though that was more extreme than most situations I have been in." "More extreme?" Hei-Rin stared at him. "You mean you have faced worse?" Dong-Su looked uncomfortable. "I should not have said that. I did not mean to worry you more." But Hei-Rin found herself genuinely curious now, not just afraid. "Please, I need to understand." "How do you live with so much danger?" Dong-Su sighed. "Earth is not a gentle planet, Your Highness. The weather changes without warning. Earthquakes can level cities in minutes. Storms can destroy everything you have built. Diseases can kill millions. But it is still our home. We learn to love it despite all of that, or maybe because of it." He gestured toward the peaceful garden around them. "Your people built this perfect harmony, controlled beauty, everything in its proper place. It is wonderful, and I can see why you value it. But for humans, beauty often comes from chaos. A thunderstorm is beautiful to us. A volcano is beautiful. Even a forest fire can be beautiful, because we know it will help new life grow afterward." Hei-Rin tried to imagine finding beauty in destruction, but her mind could not grasp it. "How do you not go insane from the constant danger?" "Because it is not constant danger to us," Dong-Su explained. "It is just life. Human children play in rainstorms that would terrify most aliens. We build cities next to volcanoes because the soil is rich there. We surf on ocean waves that could crush our bodies because it is fun." "Fun?" Hei-Rin's voice cracked. Dong-Su laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. "I know how that sounds to someone from a peaceful world. But humans need challenge, Your Highness. We need problems to solve and obstacles to overcome. When everything is safe and predictable, we get bored. So we create our own challenges. That is insane." "Probably," he agreed cheerfully, "but it is who we are." Hei-Rin stared at him, trying to reconcile the gentle man sitting across from her with the terrifying warrior she had watched in the simulation. "You spoke of your deployments at dinner. Those hostile worlds, were you afraid?" Dong-Su considered the question seriously. "Sometimes. Fear can be useful if you do not let it control you, but mostly I was curious. New environments mean new challenges, new things to learn. Every hostile world teaches you something different about survival. And if you had died on one of those worlds, then I would have died doing something worthwhile," he said simply. "Protecting my people, exploring new places, pushing the boundaries of what humans can survive. There are worse ways to die." Hei-Rin felt her skin pulse with deep blue sadness. "Your people have such short lives compared to ours. Do you not want to spend them safely?" "Safety is not living, Your Highness," Dongsu replied. At least not for humans. We would rather have 50 years of adventure and challenge than 500 years of comfort and boredom. The idea was so alien to Heirin that she struggled to understand it. The Villani valued long, peaceful lives filled with learning and creation. They built things to last for centuries and made plans that spanned generations. The idea of choosing danger over safety made no sense to her. Your people must think we are cowards, she said quietly. Dongsu looked surprised. Not at all. Your people built something beautiful and lasting. You created art and music and technology that amazes us. You found ways to live in harmony with your environment instead of fighting it. That takes a different kind of courage, but not the kind that can survive in your universe. Maybe not, Dongsu admitted, but maybe that is why we need each other. Humans are good at surviving chaos, but we are not always good at building lasting peace. Your people understand harmony and long-term planning in ways we never could. Heirin looked around at the peaceful garden, seeing it through new eyes. For the first time, she wondered if the Villani way of life was not perfect, but simply different. Safe, controlled, predictable, but maybe also limited. The simulation, she said. When it malfunctioned, I thought you were going to die. I have never been so frightened in my life. I could tell, Dongsu said gently. Your skin patterns were very bright. You could have died, and it would have been my fault for allowing the demonstration. But I did not die, he pointed out. And even if I had, it would not have been your fault. Sometimes things go wrong despite everyone's best efforts. That is just how life works. The alarm began as a soft chime during the morning diplomatic session. Rin was reviewing trade agreements with Elder Taehi and the human delegation when the gentle sound interrupted their conversation. At first, no one seemed concerned. Station alarms went off regularly for routine drills and minor technical problems, but the chime became a steady beeping, then a loud wailing that made everyone stop talking and look toward the ceiling speakers. "Attention all personnel," came the voice of the station commander. "We have detected unauthorized ships approaching the station. All diplomatic staff, please report to secure locations immediately. This is not a drill." Heirin felt her skin flicker. With yellow concern patterns, unauthorized ships? Who would approach a diplomatic station without permission? Commander Park was already standing up from the conference table, speaking quietly into a communication device. His expression was serious but not panicked. "Sergeant Kim, report to the armory immediately," he said. "Standard security protocols." Dongsu nodded and started toward the door, but the station commander's voice came over the speakers again, more urgent this time. "All personnel, we are under attack by Korth raiders. Multiple ships, heavily armed. All diplomatic staff must evacuate to the secured zones immediately. Security teams to battle stations." The words hit Heirin like cold water. Korth raiders were the nightmare of civilized space, pirates who attacked anyone they thought they could rob or enslave. They were brutal, well-armed, and completely without honor. They had never attacked a diplomatic station before, but that just meant they were getting bolder. Elder Taehi grabbed Heirin's arm. "Your Highness, we must get to the safe rooms now." But Heirin could not move. The thought of Korth raiders on the station, breaking through the beautiful clean walls, bringing violence into this peaceful place, made her mind freeze with terror. Her skin blazed with pure purple panic light. The station shook around them as weapons fire hit the outer hull. Emergency lights began flashing, and she could hear the sound of running feet in the corridors outside. Everything was falling apart, just like in her worst nightmares. "Princess." Stayed, his voice calm and steady despite the chaos around them. "Look at me." She turned toward him, her vision blurry with fear. He was standing perfectly still while everyone else ran around in panic, and his dark eyes were focused entirely on her. "Everything is going to be all right," he said. "But I need you to listen carefully. Can you do that?" Heirin nodded, unable to speak. Good, the safe rooms your people built are excellent, but they were designed to protect against accidents and system failures, not military attacks. The Korth will find ways through them eventually. So we are going to do something different. What? She whispered. We are going to stay together, and I'm going to get you out of here alive. But I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say, even if it seems wrong. Can you do that? Another explosion shook the station, stronger this time. Through the conference room windows, Heirin could see flashes of light as the Korth ships fired on the station's defenses. Yes, she managed to say. Dongsu smiled, and for once his predator teeth did not frighten her. Then let's go. The corridors were full of panicking people. Station personnel ran toward emergency stations while diplomatic staff headed for the secure zones. But Dongsu led Heirin in a different direction, toward maintenance areas that most people never saw. Where are we going? Elder Taehi demanded, following behind them. Somewhere they will not expect to find us, Dongsu replied, opening a door marked with symbols that meant authorized personnel only. Behind the door was a narrow maintenance shaft that led deeper into the station. We cannot go in there, Taehi protested. Those passages are not designed for people. They are too small, too dangerous. Perfect, Dongsu said. The Korth are big. They will not fit in spaces this small. He disappeared into the shaft, moving quickly despite the cramped conditions. Hey, Rin hesitated for a moment, then followed him. The passage was indeed small and uncomfortable, barely wide enough for her shoulders, but she could hear weapon fire getting closer in the main corridors behind them. They crawled through the maintenance shafts for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Dongsu seemed to know exactly where he was going, taking turns at intersections without hesitation. Behind them, Heirin could hear Elder Taehi breathing heavily and muttering prayers. Finally, they came to a larger space, where several maintenance shafts met. Dongsu helped Heirin and Taehi out of the narrow passages, then began examining the walls around them. Where are we? Hey, Rin asked. Near the main power distribution center, Dongsu replied, running his hands along what looked like a solid wall. The Korth will try to take control of the station systems from the command center, but they will not think to check the backup controls down here. He found what he was looking for, a hidden panel that opened to reveal a complex array of switches and displays. Station schematics appeared on small screens, showing the locations of Korth forces throughout the facility. How do you know about this? Taehi asked suspiciously. I studied the station blueprints before we arrived, Dongsu said, working quickly with the controls. Standard security preparation. On the displays, Heirin could see red dots representing Korth raiders moving through the station corridors. There were more of them than she had feared, and they were spreading out systematically, checking every room and passage. They are looking for the diplomatic personnel, she realized. They want to capture us for ransom. Probably, Dongsu agreed. The Korth are not stupid. A Villani princess would be worth more alive than dead. The casual way he said it made Heirin's blood run cold. She had always known that her royal status made her a target, but she had never really believed anyone would be bold enough to attack a diplomatic station to get to her. Another explosion shook the station, and several lights went out in their small chamber. On the displays, more red dots appeared as additional Korth forces boarded the station. The defenses are failing, Taehi said, her voice shaking. We should have gone to the secure zones with the others. No, Dongsu said firmly. Look at the tactical display. The Korth are already moving toward the secure zones. They probably have the access codes by now. He was right. The red dots were converging on the areas where station personnel would expect to find safety. Anyone hiding in those rooms would be trapped with no way out. What do we do? Hey, Rin asked. Dongsu studied the displays for a moment, then began working with the station controls. We turn their own tactics against them. What do you mean? The Korth are using the station's layout to hunt down everyone hiding in the secure areas. But they do not know the station as well as they think they do, and they definitely do not know how humans fight. His fingers moved quickly over the control panel, accessing systems that Hayren did not even know existed. Environmental controls. Power distribution, gravity generators, communication networks. He was taking control of the entire station from this hidden maintenance center. The station's defenses were designed to protect against external attacks, he explained as he worked. But they can also be used against enemies who are already inside, if you know how to reprogram them properly. On the displays, Hayren watched as sections of the station began changing. Doors that had been open closed automatically, trapping groups of Korth raiders in small rooms. Gravity generators turned off in some areas, making it impossible for the heavy-armored pirates to move effectively. Emergency containment fields activated, creating barriers that split up the attacking forces. "How do you know how to do this?" she whispered. "Humans have been fighting in confined spaces for thousands of years," Dong-Su replied. "Ships, bunkers, underground tunnels, space stations, the principles are always the same. You use the environment itself as a weapon." But the Korth were adapting too. Some of them began moving toward the power distribution center, probably realizing that someone was sabotaging their attack from the engineering sections. "They are coming this way," Tae said, pointing at the displays. "I know," Dong-Su said. Calmly, "That is part of the plan." He finished his work with the controls and moved toward the chamber's only exit, a maintenance hatch that led to the main corridor. "Stay here and watch the displays. If something happens to me, use the emergency communication system to call for help." "Wait," Hayren said, grabbing his arm. "You cannot go out there alone. There are too many of them." Dong-Su looked down at her hand on his arm, then met her eyes. "Your Highness, this is what humans do. We do not run from impossible odds. We find ways to make them work in our favor. But you could die, yes," he said simply, "but you will not. And that is what matters." Before she could argue, he was gone, disappearing through the hatch into the corridor beyond. "Hey," Rin stared at the closed hatch, her skin blazing with every color of panic and fear and something else she could not name. On the displays, she could see the red dots of the Korth raiders moving closer to their location. But she could also see something else, a single blue dot that represented Dong-Su, moving through the corridors toward the attacking forces. One human against dozens of heavily armed pirates. It should have been suicide, but as Hayren watched the displays, something extraordinary began to happen. It moved. The diplomatic chamber looked very different now. Scorch marks decorated the walls where Korth weapons had burned through the beautiful crystal panels. Several of the singing stones lay broken on the floor, their music silenced forever. Emergency. Repair crews worked quietly in the corners, trying to restore the damaged systems. Hayren sat at the conference table, no longer the frightened princess who had hidden in maintenance shafts 12 hours ago. Her ceremonial dress had been replaced with simple, practical clothing, and her skin showed steady patterns of blue thoughtfulness mixed with gold determination. She was still tired, still shaken by the attack, but something fundamental had changed. Inside her, Elder Tae sat beside her, reviewing reports on a tablet. The old diplomat's normally perfect composure had cracks in it now. She kept glancing toward the damaged walls and muttering about security failures and the breakdown of civilized order. "The final count is 37 Korth raiders," Tae said, reading from her tablet. "All of them either captured or dead. No casualties among station personnel or diplomatic staff." "How many did Sergeant Kim account for?" "Hey," Rin asked. Tae paused, checking another section of the report. 28. The remaining 9 were taken by station security after he disabled their weapons and trapped them in containment fields. Rin nodded, not surprised. She had watched the whole battle from the maintenance center displays, seeing Dong-Su move through the station like a force of nature. He had not just defeated the raiders, he had systematically dismantled their entire operation, turning their coordinated attack into chaos and confusion. "The other diplomatic delegations are demanding an investigation," Tae continued. "They want to know how one human soldier could accomplish what should have required an entire security force." "And what will you tell them?" "The truth," Tae said grimly. that we have been underestimating humans since first contact. The chamber doors opened, and Dong-Su entered with Commander Park and several other human officers. Dong-Su looked tired but alert, wearing a fresh uniform to replace the one damaged during the fighting. He moved with the same quiet confidence. Rin had noticed from their first meeting, but now she understood what that confidence really meant. He was not arrogant or reckless. He simply knew with absolute certainty that he could handle whatever situation presented itself. Not because he was invincible, but because he could adapt to anything and find ways to turn problems into solutions. "Your Highness," he said, making a small bow. "I am glad to see you are well. Thanks to you," she replied. "I owe you my life, Sergeant." Dong-Su looked uncomfortable with the formal gratitude. "I was just doing my job, Your Highness." "No," Rin said firmly. "You did much more than that." She stood up from the conference table and walked to one of the damaged crystal formations. The beautiful singing stone had been split down the middle by weapons fire, but it still glowed faintly with inner light. "When I was a child," she said, touching the broken crystal, "my grandmother told me stories about the old days before our empire became powerful. She said our ancestors lived in fear of raiders and pirates, never knowing when violence might destroy everything they had built." She turned back to face the humans. "My people spent centuries creating a civilization where such fears would be unnecessary. We built strong defenses, made careful alliances, established laws and treaties that would protect us from chaos. We thought we had solved the problem of violence forever." Elder Taehi shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "Your Highness, perhaps. This is not the time for... This is exactly the time." Rin interrupted, her skin flashing with golden authority patterns. "Today I learned that all our careful planning, all our beautiful technology, all our civilized agreements meant nothing when real violence came to our door." She walked back toward the conference table, her movements sure and purposeful. "The Korth raiders broke through our defenses in minutes. They took control of our systems, trapped our people, and would have succeeded in their goals if not for one thing." She stopped directly in front of Dong-Su. A human who understood that civilization is not about avoiding chaos, it is about being strong enough to protect what matters when chaos arrives anyway. Commander Park exchanged glances with his officers. "Your Highness, we appreciate your words, but I am not finished," Rin said. And the authority in her voice surprised everyone, including herself. "My people will spend weeks analyzing what happened here. They will write reports about security, failures, and the need for better defenses. But they will miss the most important point." She gestured toward the damaged chamber around them. "Perfect defenses do not exist. Beautiful plans can be broken. Civilized agreements can be ignored by those who choose violence over law. And when that happens, you need allies who can do more than just build stronger walls." Elder Taehi stood up from her chair. "Princess, I must protest. You cannot make policy decisions based on one incident. I can and I will." Rin replied, her skin blazing with confident gold light. "As a princess of the Villani Empire, I have the authority to negotiate preliminary agreements pending approval by the Emperor." She turned to face Commander Park directly. "I want to propose a formal military alliance between our peoples." The room fell silent. Even Dong-Su looked surprised. "Your Highness," Taehi said carefully, "such an alliance would have enormous implications." We cannot afford not to," Rin said firmly. "Commander Park, what would your people want in exchange for military cooperation?" Park thought for a moment. "Primarily, we would want access to your technology and manufacturing capabilities. Human equipment is reliable, but your people build things that last for centuries. We could learn much from each other." "And what would you offer in return?" "What we do best," Park replied. "We would help protect your people and your worlds from threats that cannot be handled by conventional defenses. Pirates, raiders, hostile environments, impossible situations, anything that requires adaptation and creative problem-solving." Rin nodded. "That seems fair." "Princess," Taehi protested, "you cannot seriously be considering this. Humans are dangerous. They bring chaos wherever they go." "Yes, Heirin agreed. They do, but today I learned something important about chaos. She walked to the observation windows that looked out at the stars. Chaos is not evil, Elder. It is simply change that we did not plan for, and change is the only constant in the universe. My people have spent so much energy trying to prevent change that we forgot how to deal with it when it comes anyway. She turned back to face the room. Humans do not try to prevent chaos. They partner with it. They find ways to use it, to benefit from it, to turn it into an advantage. That is not a weakness. It is the most valuable skill any species could have. Dongsu spoke quietly. Your Highness, an alliance between our peoples would not just be about military cooperation. It would mean cultural exchange, shared colonies, joint exploration missions. Your people would be exposed to human ways of thinking and living that might change your civilization in ways you cannot predict. Good, Heirin said, surprising everyone again. My people have been the same for thousands of years. We build beautiful things and live peaceful lives and think we have achieved perfection. But perfection is just another word for stagnation. She smiled, and her skin glowed with warm golden light. I think it is time for the Villani Empire to learn how to surf. Surf? Commander Park looked confused. Something Sergeant Kim told me about yesterday, Heirin explained. Humans who ride on ocean waves for fun, even though the waves could easily kill them. It seemed insane to me then. But now I understand that riding the wave is better than being crushed by it. She walked back to the conference table and activated the diplomatic recording systems. Let the record show that Princess Heirin of the Villani Empire formally proposes a military and cultural alliance with the United Earth Defense Force, pending approval by both governments. Elder Taehi sank back into her chair looking stunned. The Emperor will never approve this. The Emperor is not stupid, Heirin replied. When I tell him what happened here, when I explain what humans can do, he will understand. We need allies who can protect us from the chaos we cannot predict or control. She looked directly at Dongsu. And you need allies who can help you build things that last, who can show you that not everything has to be a struggle for survival. Dongsu nodded slowly. That sounds like a partnership that could benefit both our peoples, Your Highness. Then we are agreed in principle, Heirin said. The details can be worked out by our respective governments. She moved toward the chamber doors, then paused. Sergeant Kim, would you walk with me? I have more questions about Earth, and I think I finally have the courage to hear the answers. As they left the chamber together, Heirin felt her skin glowing. With colors she had never displayed before, not the purple of fear or the blue of sadness, but bright patterns of excitement and anticipation. For the first time in her life, she was looking forward to an uncertain future. Behind them, Elder Taehi was already composing messages to the Villani High Command, trying to explain how a simple diplomatic meeting had turned into a proposal. That would reshape the galaxy, but Heirin was no longer thinking about diplomatic protocols or imperial policies. She was thinking Abu,